Ourselves. Good point, good point.
Oh, sorry.
Wanna come up here?
How are you?
How are you?
Good. Good.
Right.
Okay, we've got a quorum. Let's call this meeting to order at 11:01. Welcome everybody back for another episode of RAB. Let's have a roll call.
Chair Klein,
Here,
Vice Chair Robinson. Taylor Adams. Chair Harris,
Here.
Jay Kent. Eddie Oliverio,
Here.
Michael Pawnee,
Here.
Kurt Stitzer,
here,
and Mike Van Houten.
here. Awesome. Quorum is established. Let's move on to public comment. Do we have any public comment in the room or online? Oh, actually, we'll mark Taylor Adams present online.
Yep, I'm gonna promote him to a panelist.
Okay. Do you have any comments?
I do, if I may. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name's Barbara DiCiano. I'm your minute taker. And I can see most of your name tags, but if I can see them also, I can make sure I get the right person talking. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, seeing no other public comment, we'll move on to our agenda. Just reviewing the agenda and for action to approve it. Looks like today's agenda is mostly information and discussion items. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
This is Nettie Oliverio, second.
Second by Nettie. All those in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the agenda is approved. We have a few minutes, meeting minutes to review. A4 minutes are behind the agenda. If you want to just take a few seconds to browse those if you haven't already. Otherwise, if you have reviewed them and you have no changes, I'd like a motion to approve the minutes.
This is Nettie Oliverio and move to approve the minutes from the August meeting, 2025 meeting.
Okay, motion by Nettie.
Second.
Second by Kara. All those in favor of approving the minutes from August 4th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Michael Pine abstained because I wasn't here.
Abstention. Michael Pine. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move into A5 staff liaison report. Mr. McCart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian McCarter for the record. I don't have a staff liaison report, mostly presentations today, which will cover most of everything, so.
Very good. Let's move into our business items and we'll start off with B1, a presentation and discussion of the Redevelopment Agency's quarterly report.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I hope I don't kill you by PowerPoint today, but we're going to cover three main sections. We've been talking about trying to wrap up the year, summarize a lot of RDA activities, as well as do kind of a Q4 of last fiscal year report. So we're going to run through some wins of the last fiscal year, some things that happened in the last quarter, and some activities we have going on right now as we head into the fall. Let me share this PowerPoint. Share screen.
This be Q3, I guess.
Q4 would have gone
Q4?
to the end of June.
Okay.
Q4 fiscal year 2025. So summarize the wins and activities of last fiscal year. We're going to run through this first. Hold on, the technical difficulty. All right, nice. So for wins around placemaking and activation, we opened and finished the redesign of West Street Plaza as well as Locomotion Plaza. I'll have some photos I can share in a second. Drake McIntyre, who's placemaking manager, was very active this year. Over 70 activations took place this summer. Summer's still coming up. Flicks on the Bricks. Is there still one tracks? House party today with tracks this Thursday? This Saturday.
And then Reno Antique Fair has 2 more events.
Got it. And then Flicks on the Bricks, which is a movie event in West Street Plaza. So the season's not over yet, but 70 new activations throughout this summer. The way the ARPA funds were separated is we locked in not only this summer, but also all the activations for next summer are already planned. So those activations are going to take place next year again. Western Lights Festival was a success. That happened last February. We received 61,000 attendees over 3 days. And Rachel has formed a new organization, a new group of people that's going to take the charge and sort of be the owners of that event going forward, so that it's not perceived as an RDA event. And plans are already underway, fundraising. There's a call for artists out right now. And that event will happen February
19th through the 21st of 2026.
Awesome.
Do we choose February just because it's a slower time in town and it's an opportunity to do some sort of activation because we got lucky last year with the weather.
Yeah, Rachel McIntyre plays making leader for the record. So there are a variety of reasons that we ended up choosing February. The first is that we wanted a shoulder season activation to support with businesses, residents, and tourism during our slower months. That was primary. Secondary is for a lighted art festival, it has to be dark. And so you really only have 2 to 3 months out of the year that you can feasibly host a 5-hour per day event where it's dark enough early enough. And so that was the second reason. The third is we partnered with the Napa Lighted Art Festival as well as the Portland Winter Lights Festival to create a route for artists to travel. This significantly helps offset the cost for touring artists with transportation fees, as well as artist fees. If we can work in partnership with Napa's Festival, which happens during the month of January into the first week of February. Portland Winter Lights Festival is beginning first 2 weekends of February. So we're kind of ending the season with Western Lights on the West Coast with that last weekend in February. Understanding that inclement weather is very real. These festivals happen internationally all over the world, and the vast majority of them do take place during the winter months. And it is a snow or shine event, if you will. We really believe that, you know, we got lucky last year, which was amazing with the weather. Now we have proof of concept, content to market the event, and we're confident that even with a little bit of snow, folks will still show up. Just based on what we've seen from other organizations and events around the world.
Rain or snow? Right, or snow or shine?
Snow or shine, I think rain, you know, Portland, Portland has had some interesting experiences over the last 10 years with their event taking place in rain. But still happens every year despite the rain.
All right. Related to that is the Holiday Lights Festival that happens after Thanksgiving has been expanded to 2 weekends. As well as there's other events happening. The Reno Aces announced that they're going to do a holiday themed event, as well as the Rose participating. And then there is it the craft event at the bowling stadium?
Reno Antique Fair was approached by RSCDA due to the success of their activation pilot program that they've done on Virginia Street throughout the summer. And so they will be doing their Reno Antique Fair Holiday Edition at the National Bowling Stadium. That'll be happening in December, 3rd Sunday in December. The Row has decided to partner with Great American Craft Fair on the Holiday Lights Festival this year. So they'll be producing a indoor vendor village inside of the row in collaboration with everything that's going on outside at City Plaza, Virginia Street, and then they'll be activating Locomotion Plaza with the Holiday Ale Festival.
Awesome. And then last is through the pilot activation program, there's 11 new recurring events, a lot of them facilitated by our team and Rachel. And so it was branded the River and Rails events, summer event schedule, so that we could sort of highlight the entire summer events activities. Highlighting the improvements to West Street Plaza. This was the original rendering with our partner Dig Studios. This came from our Truckee River Vision Plan. It's always nice to see the reality turn out exactly how the renderings are. This is the plaza finished and activated. It's been hosting Harmony on the River, House on the River, Clicks on the Bricks, as well as other events. We've seen tons of people down there in the hundreds at times during some of those, as well as kids. It's nice to see kids down there enjoying the plaza and just people enjoying the space when nothing really is going on. It's a view from the aerial. You'll notice we've started to take higher quality photos of all these things so that we can start doing more storytelling around these. This is the design from the Truckee River placemaking efforts. The Virginia Street placemaking study. Those efforts to redesign Locomotion Plaza, those are the renderings that we showed a little over a year ago. And this is the finished product. You have new umbrellas, both the big white umbrellas as well as the smaller black umbrellas that can be taken down and stored, as well as all the new furniture, food trucks, shipping containers, all of that. Here are some photos of those. It's a great use of the space. As the events have gotten bigger, they've expanded onto Virginia Street. So now Virginia Street is closed to host the Up the Rails music series and house party plays and tracks. Switching over to some river and streetscape stuff. In partnership, and a lot of this is in partnership with our Public Works Department, but the Riverwalk area has seen a lot of improvements, from trash cans to new lighting installations on Riverside Drive, as well as east of the river towards Broadhead Park. Wayfinding signage was going to go in here fairly soon. That's getting finalized. And Riverwalk will be receiving new Riverwalk Merchant Association banners throughout the area. And as noted, we've been seeing a lot more families and residents and visitors coming down to enjoy these spaces. On the left is an image of the new Riverwalk trash cans. Those are branded with the new Riverwalk branding element. And these are the new wayfinding signs that are going to come in the next few months. There are 2 or 3 big monument signs at key intersections. There are smaller ones at key streets. And then there are sort of waist-high little posts that are street identifying signs to help people get around. These will be going from Booth Street all the way to Broadhead Park within the Riverwalk corridor. We relaunched the Redevelopment Agency last August. We, at that time, released a status report that kind of summarized the history, the status of the Redevelopment Agency. And then we released the participation program, which is process for private developers to come and work with the Redevelopment Agency. Since then, we've received 7 TIF applications, tax increment financing applications. The primary one was the Grand Sierra Resort Arena that was approved. They're breaking ground here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So they're going to have a ribbon cutting starting that. But since then, we have 5 TIF applications under gap analysis, which is we hire a consultant to make sure that there is a financial gap and that the projects won't proceed unless we support the project in filling the gap. We did receive 1 application that was ineligible. That was the old Ross Manor. They're 2 months away from being completed. And so because the project already started, that was practically deemed ineligible because of the but-for test.
What was the second one?
So Grand Sierra Resort Arena project was the first one.
There's 7 TIF and 5 under review.
Yep. So the one that was denied was the old Ross Manor. That's called 118 West.
Yep.
The other 5 are the 5th and Keystone projects.
No, what's the second one that's not under gap analysis? 7 minus 2 is 5.
Yes, sir.
GSR was 1. One was denied, and then we have 5 current running right now.
Oh, GSR's already been.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, since we relaunched, we received 7 applications. So 7 total, 1 approved, 1 denied, 5 under gap analysis, for a total of 7. And obviously we relaunched the RAB with new bylaws in January, so we're 7 months, 8 months into that. Here is a image of the grants here, Resort Arena across all 3 phases. The first phase is the parking structure, the community skating rink, the arena field, and the golf facility towards the reservoir over there. For redevelopment projects, so the first one is the Record Street, the old community assistance center that is being demolished as we speak. It might even be down today, as far as I know. But that's been going the last few weeks. The developer on that has received all their funding to do 136 units of affordable housing. They should be submitting their permits next month, or this month, actually, since we're in September. We've been talking to the developer on Zero Commercial Row, who has a TIF application in for 200, possibly 205 townhomes with some riverfront improvements. The redevelopment agency board approved the city, as well as the city council approved the property plan, which sells a lot of properties along the retrack, and then also identifies some properties that the redevelopment agency will be purchasing. We completed a parking study, phase 1. There's a lot to do there, as well as extended sewer credits for some lots downtown to facilitate development. And then the last one is the Harris project that we put in a year plus work of meeting with them throughout the bankruptcy and the developers and getting all the ducks in a row, and finally things are coming along. The Revival project has their tenant map approved. And in the end, it's going to be 1.3 million square feet of mixed use development across 3 towers. They're going to keep one of the towers as office. And so they're going to remain, I think the North Tower is going to be 282 residential units, and the hotel tower is going to be about 390 units. And then 100,000 square feet of retail on the ground floor with fine entertainment. The article came out today announcing a lot of that. And if you drive by Virginia Street today, you'll see a lot of the new marketing banners going up along all the fencing around the property. Upper left is the design for the Ulysses development project on Record Street. That is going to be called the Prospector Apartments. That is the old community citizen center being demolished. And on our right side is Revival, and you'll notice they have 4 new structures being planned to be built inside the plaza with new retail and restaurant space. And then that is the massing on the lower right of the hotel, residential, office, and retail components. I've often said that we have 1,000 new units of housing coming online. Not necessarily true. There's 2 that are about to finish up in the next few months. One is the old Ross Manor Apartments. That's going to be 86 units, as well as the project on Winter Street, right behind Bricky's Tavern. That is
65.
65, yeah, thank you. So we have about 150 units left to come online, but that's the cohort of 100 units, of 1,000 units. And I've been saying we have about 1,500 units in the pipeline, either being discussed, permitted. You know, some of these have stood still for a while, but we have the Pine Street Townhomes project that has broken ground on Pine Street and Lake. And then we have in the lower right, that is what's the developer there? Vallejo Development on the 200 units along the river, as well as the Prospector Apartments. It's going to be 136 units of affordable housing.
And what's the status on Zero Riverside?
Zero Riverside isn't in the RDA, so I didn't put that in there, but we are patiently waiting for that one.
Really busy.
Thank you for your patience. We relaunched the Restore program. We wrapped up round 1 of Restore. We did 30 locations, 13 new businesses. The next round has been announced. We have $1 million to deploy across redevelopment areas 1 and 2. You'll see some videos coming out in the next few weeks. One was an announcement with Vice Mayor Taylor announcing the launch of Restore. We've already started to receive some applications. I put marketing efforts. In addition to some of the placemaking activation, Rachel could speak to the fact that there was a lot of advertising around town, from billboards to airport signage, as well as we put all the events on the city's website. That should have been in the placement slide. This is the Morris Berner Hotel. That was the old facade with the purple and a lot of plywood on it. They've done with Restore all brand new windows and doors on the front of the building. Another good example is the Best Bed Motor Lodge. That was what it looked like when it was shut down and now totally transformed. Capital improvements, I mentioned Locomotion Plaza and West Street Plaza. We've done the river improvements, the CEC demolition. We're currently working on exploring some changes to the Amtrak station, the Amtrak side, so that we can partition off the historic side and sort of help facilitate its future over there. We're looking at some parking gallery or some upgrades to the parking gallery, which is on Sierra, which is owned by the redevelopment agency.
Can you talk more about the Amtrak station?
Yeah. So the Amtrak station is owned by the city. It was built in, I believe, 2005, 2006 timeframe. It is operated by Amtrak, but they never built bathrooms for the Amtrak side, and so they're using the historic bathrooms on the other side of the property. And it creates safety, vandalism concerns, maintenance, etc. And so the idea is to build new bathrooms on the Amtrak side and then partition off, separate the two buildings so that we can figure out what we want to do with that historic portion on the east side of I would call it the historic rail depot.
The city on the historic side too.
Yes, yep.
And so is there any idea of what's,
So the
it's such
historic,
a cool building, it just sits there.
yeah, and we agree. So wow, I can't remember when, but historic structures report was done on that building a while ago. That identifies all the historic nature, potential uses. And so the idea is once we have that building separated, we can go out for RFP or RFI to see who would be interested in helping to transform that building into a visitor center, a restaurant, cafe. It listed a few options for that building, but we need to find a partner to do it. And then in the next presentation, I'll summarize all the plans that have been done, but we're coordinating to do a capital improvement plan project list that helps inform the next 5 years of investments so that we can start projects now and sort of phase them out over the next few years. That summarizes a lot of last year's activity. The last quarter, we started Western Lights planning, as I mentioned, and the call for artists are live. Holiday Lights Festival is expanded to 2 weeks. Pine Street is broken ground. Prospectors, the Prospector Apartments has completed all their funding.
Who's doing the Pine Street townhomes?
That is Ryder Homes.
Ryder did move forward with that.
Yeah,
Okay, so
at least they're grading it at the moment.
okay, yeah, last I talked to those guys.
Longest project
on
delay ever.
Yeah, there's a few of those. And I'll mention that Livingstone's Church has confirmed that they're purchasing the Riverside Theater. You know, there's been concern about that. I actually think we're gaining a lot of stuff that we don't currently have now. Part of their plan is to expand those small retail units that are all along the riverfront that are probably 250 square feet each, and they have no plumbing, no bathrooms. Because the church doesn't need the entire theater space. The plan is to blow out those riverfront units and actually make much larger usable retail and restaurant storefronts, as well as potentially adding a daycare component, which will create more circulation, more families downtown. As well as Wednesdays and Sundays, it should bring possibly 600 people down to the Riverwalk to walk around, go to brunch, visit the area. Here's some photos from the last Western Lights Festival. And then last slide or so, what we have going on right now, we're currently working on that RDA rebrand. We hope to have more updates on that next month with possibly some renderings and some proposals. We've relaunched the restore round. We're giving people a month to get their ducks in a row before we start reviewing the first round of applications. So in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be looking at all the applications to see if there's enough to start awarding. The Riverwalk wayfinding will go in as well as the new Riverwalk banners. We'll start working on that capital improvement plan. See updates for revival, for Prospect Apartments to break ground. We're gonna start the 4th Street area plan, which I'll mention in the last presentation, and then we're applying for new brownfields grant. We did have a brownfield grant, that ended, we expended all the funds, and so we have until end of October to reapply. Those can do phase 1, phase 2 environmental assessments, as well as,
And that's like railroad track adjacency primarily.
No, the first one was, this one will probably be all of redevelopment areas 1 and 2.
Mike Van Helm for the record, did the church decide on anything regarding parking and the parking garage? Or did it just kind of give up and are gonna pay what everybody else?
They were discussing a parking licensing deal that would sort of give them first right for X amount of spaces that they needed. In lieu of that, they've just decided to just act as every other tenant down there to pay the validation. So, you know, they pay a monthly fee based on their square footage, and any of their clients get validated parking.
Cool.
Other key wins that are outside the redevelopment area, the Downtown Reno Partnership did a great job of installing new trash cans as well as those planters throughout the area. They look great. They hosted that Rolling Reno event in the plaza for the months of June and July and a bit into August. We have the UNR Business School that opened, and that is in time for the new school year. So that is open and operational. The Nevada Museum of Art did a $60 million improvement. It's the Charles and Stacy Mathewson Education and Research Center. That was a big investment for the area. That is now open. Ferren Bakery has moved into the space on the ground floor. And then J Resort did the grand opening for their festival grounds. So a couple of things that were related but not completely activities of the RDA. And so just to close it out, so 2025 is kind of our restart year. Looking into 2026, we have plans to do more placemaking, identified redevelopment projects. We're gonna see more housing coming online. And we'll start planning the CIP events for investments and infrastructure that are needed throughout the areas.
Do you have any highlights on the capital improvements plan project list?
No, other than it exists in a lot of different places. So the Riverwalk had 5 pages. The Riverwalk vision plan had 5 pages of potential improvements. The Virginia Street placemaking plan had potential improvements. So no, they exist in a lot of areas. What we're trying to do now, our budget for the year inside the redevelopment agency is to we purchased barricades. We're working on the Amtrak station. But the idea is to look at improvements along 4th Street. Likely next year, do a redesign for the streetscapes of Virginia Street and City Plaza are the kind of the big ones, and a lot more river improvements.
Mike Van Houten for the record, I saw a post from Councilwoman Doer that the Neon Sign Museum is gonna be opening up in the bowling stadium. Does the RDA have anything to do with that, or is that strictly between that and Reno Tahoe or the city?
Yeah, so Brian McCardle for the record, that not yet with RDA. So they have approached the RCDA for use of that space. I don't know if they've signed a lease yet. But with the Restore program announcement, they were like, this is great timing. Obviously, it needs some resources to get that building set up. One of the challenges is bringing in that much power to run that many neon signs, as well as the exterior improvements. So they are considering applying for Restore funding to make that neon. Is it branded Neon Circus? Is that the idea? The Neon Circus Light Museum?
I think
That's
so,
the
or
name.
like the one that's in Vegas, I think.
Yeah.
So they're gonna be applying for Restore, and if they're awarded, then yeah, the RDA would have a
Very
role.
cool.
Any other questions? No?
Nope.
Okay. Moving on to the next presentation. So really, as we go into planning all of our capital improvements, it's really nice to summarize all the plans we've done in the past. Not surprising is that they kind of all say the same thing in a different way. And as much planning as has been done, we're gonna go through all these. I'm gonna mention and end with that we think we need one more plan, or at least a revisited one.
Of course.
And so why I review plans is we've done 20 years of planning in downtown, sometimes, or throughout the urban core. Sometimes we do planning in preparation to do this stuff, and whether it's either the Great Recession or the pandemic or something else, usually we've run into challenges and really executing on those plans. Fortunately, with the redevelopment agency showing some sustainability going forward, we really have an opportunity to move the needle on these things. And specifically with RDA 2, we have a 10-year window before that area expires, and it is producing an increment. And so we really want to execute on some of these things before our time runs out. Common themes across all the plans: safety, cleanliness, prosperity, livability, and vibrancy. Those are kind of, broad, ambiguous terms. But they all mention the river. They all mention the university. They all mention infill in blighted sites. They all mention streetscapes, and they all mention trees in some way, shape, or form. And believe it or not, all the recommendations are still relevant today. In 2016, the Urban Land Institute panel, they have an advisory services group that are practitioners in other areas that they come in and they kind of work on a city and do some research on it. They looked at Virginia Street as a boulevard. They really focused on mixed-use development all the way from the university all the way down to the convention center. They focused on outdoor recreation and culture as two key components for the area. And the plan really called for a unified vision and somebody to be the leadership role in making sure that all these proposed improvements happen. The ULI study was the first study to really call out the fact that our economy has essentially changed. Hospitality as a portion of jobs went from 26% of our economy in 1990 down to about 17% by 2004-05. That's a negative 37% decrease in our hospitality jobs. And in that time, office related jobs, services, business services, education, healthcare, and industrial obviously went up to model that out. And when ULI came to town, they said, your economy has essentially changed. You need to recognize that. You need to start planning for what the city is going to be going forward. And so
Sorry, Mike, did the hospitality jobs decrease, or was it the other jobs increased to change the percentage?
that is a great point. That could be that, that the economy
Something else is
expanded.
growing up around it.
Yeah. I'm sure this ended in 2016, so I'm sure it's come quite a ways with all the new job creation in the area.
Yeah,
So-
I just asked, sorry,
Ned,
Yeah,
just
Well-
trying to get an idea, downtown is hospitality centric, is it decreasing or has it been stable and everything around it's growing?
well, Nediana Bavaria for the record, so we have fewer casinos now than we had previously. And just from that standpoint alone, I would say that hospitality positions are down. And tribal gaming was significant in gutting that, really. So, I think about like in 1980, the number of casinos that we had downtown, including the Pioneer Center, across the street, the Pioneer Hotel and Casino there. And so if you start, they did this in starting about 2016. So the question is, from where did they start measuring? But nonetheless, we do have fewer hospitality jobs than we had, and they're starting to and have been scattering over into Sparks as a result.
I think too, like the mergers might have
Right.
made a difference because people are working more hours at the different entities, but the reduction of the amount of people
Yeah.
could have been a big factor
Yeah.
Yeah.
in that time frame specifically.
Yeah, and like, and how, because we lost you know, the Golden Phoenix, the Flamingo.
Yeah.
Harris, and
But, yeah.
those weren't, I think, absorbed by other properties
Mhm.
necessarily.
This plan sort of separated into 4 district areas and recommended certified parcel and land use, addressing some big parcel areas going through these. So it mentioned the Gateway project. Obviously, we've seen a lot of traction in this area with the parking garage built in this area, the new business school, a new hotel coming soon as well, and possibly a life science center in that area. It recommended the redevelopment of the Walgreens site as a connector. So that's something to think about in the future. And it sort of south of the river, recommended, you know, as we always say, the university coming.
Does Walgreens own that facility or did?
No, NDOT.
owns it?
So Walgreens was under this.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
One thing that mentioned in this plan in 2016 is to make Center Street, lose a lane along Center Street, and do a greenway path. Instead of pushing people down Virginia Street, making a greenway path along the west side of Center Street. That is sort of challenging with some of the development that's occurred, but the university has expanded a new tree line streetscape on the east side of the property. You can always do that through the Walgreens site as well, as kind of do more landscaping. Going north of downtown, something you'll see in the next few slides, all of them recommend some sort of Virginia Street streetscape enhancement. But it does recommend the areas in pink, focusing core redevelopment along all those properties. We know that Canyon Flats came in and took up one of those, but the southern 2 parcels still have yet to be transformed in some way. The area around Reno vulcanizing is still an empty lot, but that one is being talked about being redeveloped. But the area in yellow has been a
It's
big
been
topic
for
of
sale
conversation.
for a year or two.
It has, since those motels were demolished for a while. But somebody does have an option on the property. They're kind of trying to make something work. The area in yellow is that University Village concept that has been identified as a key redevelopment site. The university did purchase the 19 homes over there, but there's potential to do a lot more, especially with the 600 University parcel lot on the corner of 6th and University.
Do we know what, if any, like planning has been done for all that stuff? I know that they kind of moved some faculty and stuff into some of those houses, but are they planning on doing some meaningful redevelopment there? Or is it just kind of lipstick on the pig and use what's there for the foreseeable future?
Right now, I think it was, the group that bought that was planning on doing more student housing. And this plan called for bringing all the student housing on the south of the freeway. Unfortunately, what we saw is all along Virginia Street added all the student housing, 7,000 beds, I think. And so the opportunity to add more student housing was kind of hindered. So a key developers that purchased these thinking they do student housing projects didn't really work. But the university does need faculty and staff housing. And so that is one of the reasons why they purchased these homes, these 19 homes, is they are, I think there's 19 homes, but I think they claim that there's 50 units for faculty and staff. But they still, a few ideas have come down on that 600 University site. So we don't have an idea at the moment when what's gonna go on there. I'll mention that in the next presentation about through that 4th Street redevelopment plan, or revitalization plan. We think we can work with the university to sort of help them achieve a vision for this site.
Mike, can you go back?
Yep.
Mike, do you know why they didn't extend the redevelopment priority that blocks south of 4th Street? In the bowling stadium in El Dorado?
No, you mean, no, I don't.
Cause that seems like it's in
Yeah, I mean,
me as well.
Where the Regency, the Regency site is.
Yeah, the old sportsman and. yeah.
Yep.
well, the old bus depot there too.
Yeah.
I mean, the city was talking about doing something
That seems like
there
just as much.
back in 2009, 10. And I was involved in some of those conversations and they just kind of like. Yeah, I think that's when the
P3.
the guys out of Boise were talking about bringing the hockey team here. And that kind of rolled into that conversation.
Well, this slide actually does address that. That a lot, so central downtown, it does focus on a lot of new parks and plaza improvement, so it talks about. I would call it it was called City Center because it was the old bus station. Redeveloping that site as a potential new park or plaza, focusing on retrack lit improvements, that has obviously been done. What's interesting is in 2016, it recommends redeveloping Harris, but I think Harris was still operating at the time. It does recommend looking at Calneva, the potential redevelopment site, and nearly every plan that has been done has recommended the redesign of Bowie Plaza, City Plaza, depending on how you want to call it.
Have you guys looked at partnering with RTC on, I'm looking at number 2, the new city park?
Yep.
Leveraging some RTC dollars, maybe doing an underground parking there with a park on top.
That's-
Having them fund some of it.
It is, RTC is no longer involved in that. It's pretty much come over to the city. If it is sold to a developer, that has to sort of scatter because there were sewer funds. there
Yeah,
were
I'm saying,
Street funds.
looking to leverage their dollars, transportation needs, they've identified parking needs downtown.
Yep.
That might be a way to expand the dollars that the redevelopment agency has and get more.
It is possible. The bowling stadium does have all that parking that is primarily underutilized when there's not an event going on. So there is talks about how do we use that parking? But to your point, I think the opportunity is wide open for that site. The DRP still has a year or two left on their lease. And so when that starts wrapping up, we can talk about potential ideas for that site.
Thinking like Union Square in San Francisco.
For more underground parking.
Yeah, but then you've got the park on the top.
The gathering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going south. Again, another point that all these plans reference is redeveloping the post office parking lot site, as well as the county courthouse site. And that's the,
Number 3, take that off there.
yeah. When did the Eddy open?
Oh, 9.
09?
Oh,
That. when did-
16, sorry,
16.
Yeah.
So this probably came out right when the Eddy was opening. But essentially identifies a lot of underutilized parking lots throughout the area. The one by the US Bank building is the Starbucks site, and then the one south of that is the parking lot behind Churrasco and Midtown Eats. Further going south, one thing that came to fruition, number 3 there is the development of the Park Lane site. That obviously came to fruition. One thing that hasn't been discussed is improvements along Plum Lane. That is in redevelopment area 2. It's seen some development with Panasonic moving in. The in and out is going on in the corner of Kitski and Plum. And so there's a potential to focus on Plum Lane and do some streetscape improvements. We'd probably have to work with RTC on that. And then going south, that identifies a lot of underutilized parking areas. Part of that is RDA 2. Some of those are not in RDA 2, like the Peppermint sites. But potential projects that can be addressed in the future. That was the 2016 ULI panel. Moving to 2017, the downtown action plan. This is in response to a call, where's downtown going? What are we doing? We need a plan, we need a vision. And so Puma out of Denver was brought in to focus on a lot of the stuff. Their core values were livable, prosperous, safe and clean, connected and vibrant. Bit ambiguous terms, but the focus was housing. They identified that housing can be a transformative element to turn more into a downtown or to a downtown neighborhood type feel. It addressed the university as a big economic driver, not to bring the university south across the freeway, but just having a university that close in general is a huge economic opportunity. And then it mentioned that a lot of the plans did is we need to diversify our tourism draw. It primarily focused on, arts and culture as a huge tourism draw, and then as well as our recreation assets in the river as a potential tourism draw.
Has there been any retroactive look at Denver? My understanding from friends that still live there and operate restaurants and bars and things like that is that downtown Denver almost got overbuilt and now there's a ton of vacancy and they've driven up the cost of everything so high that operators can't sustainably survive in the downtown Denver market. So I don't know, just something to be,
We can look at it.
we're a long ways from getting to that point.
Be a good
by-
problem to
by any
have.
means.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's swung the other end of the pendulum and they're starting to see a lot of vacancies in downtown Denver just because they overdeveloped it and the cost to actually
Is that retail or housing?
and for retail. Yeah, so all the mixed use projects. Huge percentage of the mixed use space is sitting vacant.
Well, I know, the 16th Street Promenade has had some challenges.
It's always had challenges.
Yeah,
And of course, Portland still struggles as well,
yeah,
same way.
the promenade or,
Well, just
retail.
downtown Portland, yeah.
I mean, these stories aren't too dissimilar to other downtowns that have seen some change over the decades. But the biggest thing to come from this plan was the recommendation to create a business improvement district downtown. And so this is the document that facilitated the creation of the bid, which is now the DRP. But I want to call, sorry, small slide, but you know, they interviewed about 1,000 people. They asked them, what was the most important thing to improving downtown over the past 5 years? And the response was Truckee River improvements, new businesses, as well as new restaurants and retail. And I'm assuming that's, you know, places like Imperial and the Hub, the Eddy, Wild River Grill. So in hindsight, people ask what has been transformational. They're noticing the river improvements in the retail. Ask what they want to see and what they think could be the most defining things going forward the next 5 years. Redevelopment of blighted and vacant properties was almost tied with addressing homelessness and increasing social services. And when asked what is the single most important action to achieve the future vision for downtown, it was almost tied between reducing homelessness and redeveloping blighted or vacant properties. So when you look at this, yes, safety and cleanliness are a concern for a lot of people, but people rated that removing blight and transforming places were just as important.
Right, this 2017.
This is 2017, yes. Yep. This is the first plan to identify that we kind of have the macro districts in the area. So up north is the University District, kind of, we call that the Gateway District. You have the Northwest Quadrant, it's kind of unbranded at the time. This would be more sort of like Jacob's neon line area. On the left-hand side, Pounding District, bit of Riverwalk, but Pounding is the first subdivision in Nevada, so it's kind of a historic district there. We have the Riverwalk District, the Entertainment District is kind of the entertainment core. And then one that didn't really come to fruition was this idea of an innovation district. The soup du jour of the time in a lot of cities were to do these innovation districts. It was highlighted that you could do a corridor connecting the university to the innovation center. That didn't really come to fruition, but now we know that with the blossoming of the brewery district in the area, this area is kind of still malleable, still has a lot of opportunity, as well as Evans and that university village concept could be a great connector to pull people through the area. This plan also identified a ton of infill sites that should be addressed. Some of these have been built on. Obviously, we got Ballpark Apartments, the Mod 2 and the Jacobs Project 245 North Arlington have both come in on those sites. But the more broadly, some of these sites are exactly the same ones that are addressed in that previous plan. I'm gonna try to move through the rest of these. The city redid its master plan in 2017 and incorporated a lot of things that past studies have said. But it kept hammering on the thing to create a vibrant and livable downtown, not for just visitors, but also residents. To provide diverse housing, and this isn't just affordable housing, but a broad spectrum of housing. One of the studies actually said that we built too much Class C and B housing that without a luxury component, people compete for the B and C, and so that pushed our C housing up higher than normal, than it should have been. So what should be affordable housing is actually quite unaffordable in the area. It said to focus on the unique districts. foster new uses, events and activities. A lot of the plans focus on micromobility, bike lanes and such. It focus on trying to, or it recommends creating an urban neighborhood and really focusing on recreation and quality of life. And addresses again, streetscapes and public spaces, to drive that home. 2023, I think we addressed this one a few times, but the placemaking study came in, again, identified Virginia Street as the main corridor. Focused on sort of the university as a character area, the entertainment as a character area, and then the Riverwalk / civic space is that third character area. And recommended different improvements based on those unique characteristics. We're really focused on the baseline street level experience of people. And it addressed how many underutilized spaces we have in the area. So although there are concerns about overbuilding retail, one thing we don't have in our downtown core is a lot of retail. And so it mentioned that, you know, the real challenge in our urban core is that there is a lack of public life, period. There's 3 types of people that make it downtown: visitors, residents, and workers. And those have sort of not really changed much at all. And so downtown feels empty. There's a lot of boarded up storefronts. There's not a lot of people walking around. And so, as they said, it makes even a short walk very uncomfortable. It also found,
started on that though.
it already found that it also found 70% of Virginia Street is dead or vacant facades. And that this is the challenge of Virginia Street, is that, you know, you have a lot of blight and not a lot of uses. And it's uncomfortable. This is San Jose. In a perfect world, this is what a fully activated Virginia Street might look like. Not exactly a pedestrianized street, but wider sidewalks, you know, parklets, outdoor eating, more shade. Shade is something that comes up in every plan. And the recommendation from that plan is to focus on Locomotion Plaza. And that is the one we took on first, as well as Virginia Street furnishings. So we will eventually do a streetscape plan for Virginia Street, and unfortunately the DRP has done those planters there. So moving on, the Truckee Revision Plan focused on from the California border all the way to the Sparks City line. It's 17 miles. It focused on preserving the ecology of the river. It focused on land use along the river, connectivity, the design aspects, and the cleanliness. And cleanliness is, you know, even removing overgrown vegetation in the area. The catalytic projects were City Plaza, the Riverwalk as a whole, and then Broadhead Park as another activation node.
It was about a year ago, but there was some initiative and a bunch of public comment and stuff of people. There was a map and you could click on different parts of the river and provide feedback and stuff like that. Who ran that and what's the outcome of that?
That was this. It was with Dig Studios is the one who put that plan together.
Okay.
Most of those comments are incorporated in this plan. But the idea is to create a river walk that wherever you enter it, you kind of have a unified experience, whether you go east or west. And that the first section of that is from Lake Street going east. So that's being discussed now behind the Auto Museum. That is the hardest section of the river. And so that is getting redesigned right now. And it'll probably be funded and built starting next year.
Was it the city that commissioned this plan, or like multiple agencies?
It was the city that commissioned this plan. Fortunately, Washoe County also came in on this, because once you go past sort of Idlewild Park and Chris Collin Park, it starts to turn into checkerboarded. Some are Washoe County, some are City of Reno.
They're not focusing on Bird Eye.
There are suggested improvements in Bird Eye, but only for connectivity, not for downtown Bird Eye. There's the Truckee and then Truckee bike trail that already goes, but you know, you lose the river in a lot of sections. So one of the recommendations is to try to keep people along the river as much as possible. And so that might be trying to repurchase some land along the river to make enough of a buffer space that you can do a path. So as you mentioned, it does address the Bird Eye area. So that's considered rural. The area in yellow is considered Reno West. Most of the single family homes in this area were allowed to build right up to the river, so it makes river path really challenging. But this plan does find a way through that. You have the downtown area, and then everything in pink is Reno East. There's mostly industrial areas once you go east of Lake Street. The recommended specific design improvements, depending on which character area you were in. Over the next few years, we'll decide which sections are ready to go and can be funded, and create a unified design in certain sections. And then every plan, pretty much 7 of these plans, they all recommend their own little version of redesigning City Plaza. So this one added more grass, more shade, a pavilion concept, and a connectivity into the river. It also recommended improving that post office lot on the south. This plan is great. We do have bound copies of the plan there. But if you go through it, there's maps that recommend all potential improvements that could possibly be done.
Where can I get my hands on
You didn't make money, but I'll give you one.
one?
And then the last two plans. Yep, the last 2 plans were the Parks and Open Space plan. It also addresses creating a linear park along the river, doing more wayfinding signs, bringing in more public art, as well as focusing on new development along the river. But it did identify that funding sources was the biggest challenge to our parks and open space. And then last is the Reno Public Art Master Plan that was adopted recently. It recommends that economic development partner and redevelopment partner on things like city windows and the small walls program. You know, it's sort of a facade improvement on how do we get more murals, tactical murals throughout the area, and improve just even the visual look of buildings. And it really connected art to tourism and placemaking. So it recommended a sculpture, more sculptures, more art components all throughout the Riverwalk and our public spaces. So wrapping this up, common themes across all plans. Something in the ULI study that stood out is it quotes, it says, act like the city you are becoming, not the city that you were. I think we asked a lot of people, everyone's waiting for the city to come back in some shape or form to what it was. And I think ULI was the first one to say, it's not coming back. Economic conditions have changed, your city has changed. Start acting like the city that you're becoming, that people see you as. And so, right, all the plans recommend improving the river, focusing on arts and culture and outdoor lifestyle. One thing that was mentioned many times is to keep Reno authentic. The fact that we didn't want to be like other cities, to keep our grit in a way. Many of the studies recommended trees and canopy, whether it's 4th Street, River, Virginia Street, every streetscape, trees and canopy are a key component. They all recommended redesigning City Plaza, the post office, and the county courthouse lot. It asks that, somebody needs to take the mantle and push these things along and not only do the storytelling, but sort of hold the vision going forward. Virginia Street and Truckee River activation were mentioned in all the plans. More housing, more urban infill, safety and cleanliness. It did mention gaming is still an economic driver, but its importance has declined and will not return. They all focus on some sort of quality of life as the best asset going forward in terms of making it that urban neighborhood that our master plan talks about. And that vibrant places are a magnet for talent when it talks about economic development and bringing more companies in. Great cities attract great people, and so to keep the quality of life high. All right, we're 2/3 in. Any questions around that? Point of this activity was just sort of, we don't need to do another plan or a vision study. Everything that we need to know, want to know, are in most of these. It's just really the execution that needs to be tackled going forward.
Brian, I have a question. Nadia Oliveria for the record. As staff, how do you see from top down, City of Reno embracing this list? Do you feel like the city is unified, that is city staff and electeds unified in looking at this list and saying, these are important concepts, and we establish them and how we look at things, or are we still sort of disparate about how we look at it?
I think, Brian McCardle, for the record, fortunately, with the ARPA funds the last few years, where almost every department was able to do its own little master plan or study. And so we have all this new content, new data. The city's master plan, in essence, says a lot of this, you know, in lesser words. But I think all the data's here. What I think the missing component has been is reminding ourselves of all the work that has already been done, all the recommendations that are already there. To only revisit another plan to say the exact same thing. What's missing is primarily the execution. And that is why I think that CIP plan is really important, to sort of catalog all the potential improvements, spread them out with the budget we have and the timing, so that I think people can contextualize where we're going and what the plan is. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Mike Van Houten, for the record, that retract plan, it was so amazing, but it was also really old. Is it still actively referenced by city staff, like when something comes along that's relevant to that plan, or is it just kind of shelved because it's like from 2000?
Yeah, Brian McCardle, for the record. So that's the next presentation in a nutshell. But you know, the RDA went dormant right during the Great Recession, and that retract plan in 2007 was really robust plan. It was just never executed, and it was kind of shelved. There's no, it doesn't live on now, I guess. No one's really championing that plan. Some of the recommendations have already occurred, like even the bus station is one of the recommendations in that plan that came to fruition.
Maybe you could slap a new date on it. It doesn't sound so.
Well, that is the next presentation. So if you bear with me for one more presentation. But is there any other questions around this? Any comments on studies or plans that you think, are there any missing gaps stones left unturned that we feel we need to be addressed?
No,
That we can,
I think the biggest comment I get from the public is that there's too many plans, or there's
Yeah.
over planned, and so definitely I don't think there's any gaps.
well, I hear that, what is the plan? More often than we have too many plans, I usually get asked, what is the plan? And this is kind of, this activity is attempt to say, you know, we've done a ton of planning, and most of it is still relevant. It's just, we got to pick it up and actually put it into practice. And at some point, and I've kind of tried to do this with this presentation, is kind of get the gist of all of them, to develop a roadmap going forward without creating a document that's a roadmap. In a way. Any other questions, comments?
I'll just say, Paul Klein for the record, that it's good to see that these plans are being used. A lot of plans that cities and local governments, state governments will, commission will just sit on a shelf. And so, I mean, I'm seeing these plans all in use, finding common themes, really pointing to, okay, now let's invest the money and these resources. So I think this is a fantastic presentation, and this goes before the city council next.
This one will not.
Okay.
The past presentation of summarizing all the RDA activities, we'll do that. I think going forward.
B1, you're saying? So B1.
Yeah,
will go-
B1
Okay.
will be a council presentation, because we want to do quarterly reports to, not council, the Redevelopment Agency Board. But there is an effort to summarize the downtown action plan, because a lot of the implementation recommendations that were in that plan, we've done a lot of it.
Yeah.
A lot of that plan. So we kind of want to do a look back, summarize everything that's been done, and kind of point out things that are yet to be accomplished, so that we can take what's left without doing another downtown.
Right.
Plan. All right. This brings us to the last one. This will be a bit shorter. So item B3 is the idea of doing a 4th Street revitalization plan. And to sort of call back and look over that 2007 retract corridor study. So this is the last plan that the redevelopment agency did before going dormant. It is a 300-page plan. You know, to your point, I couldn't even find a copy of it until I found it on your downtown makeover website. And that's the only place that existed online virtually. Yet I had 5 copies of it in my office. So now we have a soft copy with the new redevelopment agency website. Likely all those plans will be in there as some sort of, all these plans will be in there as sort of an archive library. But this plan, it was a very robust plan. You know, most of our studies and activities look at downtown, north to south along. What retract really did is look at everything east to west. So it went from Keystone to the freeway going east and west, but it primarily was focused on the retract, the lids when we did the railroad trench. This study came right after that. We tore up a lot of property north and south of the retract, and so this study was to say, well, now you have all the space, what should you do with it? But it was more expansive than that. It highlights 2nd Street, 3rd Street, 4th Street, and then the university areas. Most of the things in here we can pick up today and run with. It recommends trees, you know, certain trees spaced a certain way. A lot of it is really good. It just, as we mentioned before, none of it was executed. And I think it is almost 20 years old. A lot has happened since then. And I do think without recreating the wheel, we can pick up this and under this new 4th Street revitalization effort, kind of just update this and add a few things. We want this revitalization plan to be something that we can pick out projects, much like the river plan, and we can go immediately. Because we only have 10 years in RDA 2, and so if there's projects we want to do, we should get started on them fairly soon. So it does focus on 3rd Street as this corridor along retract. And you actually saw a lot of that happen from the retract lids going west. You'll notice all the trees planted along the retract on the north side, the walkway that kind of meanders all the way past J Resort going west, as well as, you know, there's some art in there. And so that was recommended. It recommended 4th Street as a transit-oriented development corridor, meaning do a lot of mixed-use urban infill so that people can use that RTC rapid transit line to get around. Focus on 2nd Street in terms of its river connections. It focuses on that entertainment core, and that recommends some policy decisions. This is the scope of the area. So as I mentioned, the area in red is kind of that core retract parcel area, but in the darker areas is RDA 1, in the lighter area is RDA 2. So mostly the areas that are within our oversight. It went through every single parcel. This is the robustness of this plan. Went through every single parcel at the time and coded them. I'm sorry, this is too small, but it coded them light, medium, and dark of their redevelopment potential. You'll notice that on the left-hand side on 4th Street, that whole macro area was redeveloped on West 4th Street past Keystone. You'll notice, well, it calls for housing development where the ballpark is. Obviously that didn't occur. But it went through this activity and highlighted all these redevelopment sites. And I do think that is a worthy activity to do again, figure out what parcels and what spaces can be redeveloped, especially since there's a potential that the redevelopment area agency could come in and possibly purchase some of these sites to facilitate their redevelopment. It did give a few options for potential.
Real quick, Brian,
new land
sorry,
use. Yeah.
Kurt Stitzer, when the RDA buys a site and earmarks it for redevelopment, do they then go to private sector through an RFP and then resell the land or put up the land in a JV or some other structure? Is that kind of the intent of what the RDA is trying to do and piggybanking some of this dirt?
Yeah. So Brian McCardle, for the record, What some redevelopment agencies do, and so if a property is privately owned right now, and a developer is coming in, they just can't make that project work, and there's a financial gap, they can use the TIF process.
Right.
What some other redevelopment agencies do is they go in and they actively acquire land, because without them moving the pieces around, it'd be really difficult. And instead of doing a TIF deal, they'll either discount the sale of the property, so they'll go out for RFP or seek out development partners. And instead of doing a TIF deal, they'll discount the property to make the project financially, viable, yeah. And so that could be a tactic we use to purchase key land, that could last potentially after the sunset of redevelopment area 2. Where you don't have that tax increment financing option. And so there's a lot of aging industrial sites over in this area that, and we have no long-term legacy property owners like you do have, primarily entertainment core, where they've gone 3 generations of the same family. Most of this East 4th Street is independently owned properties and businesses that are sort of aging out, transmission repair, scrap yards, things like that. As I mentioned, it went from east to west, and so it identified the core and identified inner and outer neighborhoods. And then it really identified along these corridors where you need mixed use retail, where you need transit stops, etc. And, I don't want to go, I could spend all day going through this plan because it is quite a big plan, but as we focus on doing a revitalization plan, is we would focus on augmenting the retract plan in 4 areas. We would look at land planning to figure out all those potential development sites. As this slide was up here, is what areas can be industrial, what areas can be mixed use, what areas can be neighborhoods. I do think that because the University Village concept up along the freeway up there is on RDA 2, we could incorporate that as part of this plan and kind of work with the university to identify what that looks like, so we can start, both the university and the redevelopment agency, start the ball rolling on what that University Village concept could be, as well as using Lake Street and Evans as new corridors to bring students down. So land planning is one. We know that RTC did a fantastic job of redoing all of 4th Street. When RTC does do a project, they kind of do it in terms of using the streets and for transportation uses. But I would say what is lacking is robust streetscape improvements and landscape improvements. So they have done trees, but a lot of them aren't trees. They're these just shrubs. And a lot of them are dying because they didn't really, well, I would say, a lot of areas in town, without making streetscapes the core mission, a lot of the soil is bad, trees are bad, and so there'll never be a streetscape canopy on 4th Street. So this plan could possibly address 4th Street streetscapes, going in and planting more trees. 5th Street is a huge opportunity. 5th Street is very wide. And with the new businesses coming in on the brewery district, they need more parking. So there's an opportunity to do 5th Street as diagonal parking all the way through. Identifying what investments and what improvements can be made through the redevelopment agency. And then, as I mentioned, working with the university to kind of bring them down into this area. So those are the 4 focus areas that this plan would cover. I mentioned land planning. Where do we want to put housing, retail, streetscape improvements I mentioned. Investments. Where can the redevelopment agency purchase land or place money that can spur private development? And then last is, not working with the university, but the university will play a minimal role. I don't think they'll use their funds to directly deploy, but we want to bring that university culture in. So working with private developers that can work with the redevelopment agency to make uses that bring in the university culture and element down to the area. And then the last is, any other recommendations that you see that we should incorporate into the revitalization plan. I believe we kind of want to go out for RFP before winter. And so we'll likely create a scope of work, go out for RFP and entertain consultants on how we get this going. So if there's anything you'd like to see in that scope of work, anything that we should prioritize, you know, we can have that discussion now.
Mike, is this just limited to forestry or are you kind of talking about everything we just discussed?
Yeah. So our idea originally was there's so much activity going forward in RDA two, and because RDA two has funds, that the idea would be to go from Lake Street and Evans going all the way east, because it's in RDA two. When you look at this, and that is a great question, is when you look at the original retry corridor study, it went all the way from Keystone to all the way east to the Spaghetti Bowl. There is a question is, do you want to see the retract plan done again, as it originally was throughout Keystone, all the way through the land Jacob zones, through downtown, all the way to East 4th Street?
I think so. I mean, honestly, there's, and Kurt Stitzer for the record, honestly, there's more activity, more traffic, more visibility, et cetera, west of the RDA two line than there is east. And so if we're gonna do a plan, it should probably be comprehensive.
Yeah.
Kara Harris for the record, I would really, just because deployment seems to have been our biggest misstep in the past, I would really like to just see us deploy some other entities to help us execute some of these things. And I'm just gonna throw one out there, like the Master's Gardener program at the university to help deploy the tree and streetscape plan. I would really like us to help with deployment, activate some things that would really also benefit from that. So in that plan, how do we create those activations and connections and deploy other entities in the plan that benefits them and benefits us? Because I think that us taking this big chunk, it's part of the reason the deployment hasn't happened, is because we aren't activating and deploying those that could really just kind of take on the project with funding and really execute it beautifully. It's good for them, it's good for us. So I would really like to see that deployment piece with entities that are already existing in town.
Well, I think that with Brian and his team, you know, we've now got people at the
Yeah.
city level that are more focused on than we have in the years past.
But I
right?
think
So,
that there's a lot of
well
organizations.
heard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
organizations in town that really, this would be a fantastic project that they would want to take on and really be passionate about. And so if we get a couple of those, I think it could help the deployment piece in a really big way.
And is the Truckee River plan independent of forest, or so I should say separate, not independent of the 4th Street plan you're talking about?
Yeah, I think the Brian McCarter, for the record, the Truckee Revision Plan was really a riverfront plan. So development along the river, creating that linear park, possibly doing design standards. So if you're gonna develop anything within 200 feet north or south of the river, you kind of have to do the same lighting, materials, amenities, things like that.
There's some of that stuff in the current development code.
There is, yeah. Yep.
Step backs on buildings and different things like that that's required.
Yep. It's just, and there are setbacks, but there's no recommendations of lighting schemes or landscaping or things like that. So that's what that plan recommends, is doing a design overlay just to get a little bit more so that you have coordinated design throughout the area. But no, this will
Personally, this is a
likely.
priority for me.
Mhm.
But if you're looking at East 4th Street, I think you gotta know what you're doing with the river too, because
Yeah.
it comes so close to 4th Street
Yeah,
there,
they
they're kind of interconnected.
cross
Yeah,
as the river.
how you're developing that area is tied into what you're doing here.
Agreed, because redevelopment area 2 goes all the way to Renown on 2nd Street. Going south of the river actually could be part of this effort. You have 2 apartment complexes on Coonsley over kind of where the public safety center is. They're up for sale now, and so some of those developers are saying, what does the city want to see us do along the river? And what's going on with Coonsley going one way? The answer is, there's nothing in the plans now that we can talk about. That's a very good point.
Any other comments? Do you know, Paul Klein for the record, do you know any more details about when the lease is up on that Walgreens property with NDOT?
We don't. Does anyone know about the Walgreens lease?
Yeah, one more thing, I'm sorry.
Do we know when the Walgreens lease is up for renewal with NDOT?
Actually, for any assistant city manager for the record, that property has virtually an evergreen lease on it, and it's a complex component because Walgreens is actually a sub-leasee to
Oh,
the
interesting.
building itself. There's an SUP associated with it, with random conditions that make it difficult for any other property to actually go in and any other use to come there. So it's pretty extensive. We've looked at it and we continue to try to find opportunities for them to engage and be a better partner. So we keep working on that through various options.
I mean, it can't be that high performing of a store, it's pretty rough.
It's interesting, it was actually the last 24-hour pharmacy that we had in town,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they just recently took that
yeah.
away.
Yep.
So I imagine that will impact their performance quite a bit, so we're hopeful. We've got quite a few code cases on them at any moment in time, so we're hoping that they will be a better partner in the future.
Interesting. Any other comments or discussion items? Anything else for Brian to use moving forward? Okay. Any, I guess I'll check with Taylor online.
Yeah, lost.
Popped off.
Okay. Okay, anything else on this?
This is a lot today. The intent was to set the stage so that we don't have to revisit a lot of these things going forward, and that, so that everyone knows there's a why to what we propose in the future. Probably listed in one of these plans, or will be in the new plan.
So there's a test coming?
Yeah. 20 years of redevelopment history test. No, this is just a good way. We had a light agenda today. It was a good way to cover a
Yeah.
lot of the work that's been done in the past. And address that there are no new ideas here. And that really is just to set a plan to execute over the next few years. That's what we plan to tackle next.
Mhm.
So thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Great. Moving on to agenda item C, any reports or announcements from members? Okay, seeing none, moving on to item D, any future agenda items worth requesting? Okay, hearing
I
none.
mean, I'd love to know more about what the restructured group at Harris is up to. I mean, I've heard through the finance community that they continue to hit some roadblocks and different challenges there, and so. I mean, I think they got themselves out of bankruptcy, but we have the money to complete the vision of what they're doing and try and understand what their plan for the 100,000 square feet or more of retail and commercial space is. So I think that'd be an interesting thing to get a little presentation on
Mhm.
if they're willing.
Yeah, good point. Any others? Okay, we will move into item E to see if there's any public comment.
No public comment.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll move into adjournment. I'll seek a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Nadia Laverio, second.
Second for adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Thank you.